On this video, we talk about what is a healing lifestyle and how to create your own model of self-directed healing. Stay tuned. Welcome to The New Love Addiction. I'm Alan Robarge, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist, and I want to explore what is the healing lifestyle, or what is a healing lifestyle, and to begin a series of videos, an ongoing dialogue, a conversation about what does it mean to engage in healing processes. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to actually start with some disclaimers or talking about what it is not. The problem with healing, a challenge culturally in our healing and how many people approach healing, is they think of it in terms of a kind of medical model and as a kind of something that you do to get something at the end. It's a means to an end. So the medical model would say that you're broken, you need to figure out why you're broken, how you're broken, and what you need to get fixed so that you are no longer broken. So there is this approach to using healing as a kind of an additional task that you would engage in throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout your life, however you do it. But it's something that's kind of extra. It's sort of outside of how you are ultimately every day or your normal everyday life, and that this sets up this kind of false belief. It sets up this way of orienting to healing that once you're healed, then you're no longer going to need to do, you're no longer going to need to engage in healing behaviors and healing practices. So that is potentially a viable way to orient, that potentially has its own ideology, its own philosophy, its own approach, and perhaps that is working for many people. So if you're one of those people, then that's wonderful, and maybe this video will not be for you. The reason why I make that distinction is because I'm talking about what I call a healing lifestyle. So that in fact, being a human being, existing, having a mind, working with your mind, having an active emotional relationship with yourself, being able to go inward and to experience your own state of mind. The process of doing that, and to notice where you get hung up, to notice where there are some edges that are prickly, to notice where your suffering lies, and to have a plan, to have tools, to have the intention to walk closer to that suffering. That is what I am referring to as the healing lifestyle. It is not something that you are going to do when you feel like it. It is not something that you're going to do that's this kind of extra thing. It is, in the truest sense of the word, lifestyle, and what that means, it's how we orient. We are allowing ourselves to live in a state of awareness and contemplation. It is akin to a spiritual practice. What I am describing is a kind of applied spirituality, an applied spiritual practice with the intention, with the intelligence to be able to focus and discern, how do I simultaneously comfort myself, heal old patterns, and do this in a way as a kind of ongoing maintenance, a kind of ongoing active relationship with myself, an ongoing relationship with my suffering. Now, what I am sharing is oftentimes overwhelming, daunting, and quite frankly, unattractive. Many people, especially many of us who have some significant feelings or intensity around suffering, around certain circumstances, there's nothing attractive about what I'm sharing. The example I like to give is, imagine I'm in a room of 500 people, and I say, it doesn't have to be 500, it could be any people, but I'm in this room, a large number of people have assembled, and I'm standing at a podium and I announce, I say, who today would like to experience your suffering? please raise your hand. And I think you could imagine the type of turnout and the type of response that I would get. Very few people raise their hand, and even those who are on board with this idea of a healing lifestyle, people who understand the importance of having a relationship with your suffering, even they too would not very quickly raise their hand. There's a kind of intelligence about being cautious about what we're doing to move forward, to move into our own pain. But that is the invitation. That is what I mean by a healing lifestyle. So that when I see a movie, when I listen to a song, when I go for a walk, when I'm exploring relationships, when I'm noticing interactions, it is an active state of intention and consciousness. There is a purpose to apply mindfulness in service of reflecting and understanding my inner world and how that's playing out in my outer world. And quite frankly, our culture does not value this. Our culture does not teach us this. Some of us do this through religious organizations, and some of us do this through certain religious practices. Some of us do this if we're in a profession that is more of a healing profession or the humanities. There might be some cultural raised, shared, collective awareness to drop into this deeper self-reflection. But for the most part, culturally, we don't do this. So even to have it, to be at the crossroads, to even know you have a choice is oftentimes a deterrent, because it simultaneously can feel alienating and alone. It is a path. The healing lifestyle is to engage on a healing path which acknowledges to move closer into your suffering, to move closer into having a deeper, resonant relationship with your inner world, your inner landscape of emotional experience. If you're willing to do that, there are aspects to that that are isolating at times, that can feel tiring, that can feel in a way that you're choosing to be alone. Because the depths that you are going to explore, oftentimes we cannot bring another person with us. I very much mean this idea of a healing lifestyle as a conscious, intentional practice of things, very concrete things. Now, I don't know what those things are. I could make suggestions, but this is about you. You have to come up with your plan of action. You have to come up with what are the tools in your tool bag. What tools do you need to learn? You have to come up with your roadmap and or at least sketch out points A and point B, and you have no idea how you're going to get between point A and point B. But in order to engage in a healing lifestyle, it's not something that we do part-time, and it's not something that we're going to do for 6 weeks or 6 months and say, oh good, I graduated, I got my certificate, I'm completely finished with this healing lifestyle. I very much mean it as a discipline. Something that you do daily, something that you do weekly, that you're checking in with yourself multiple times, multiple ways, and that you're seeking out other vehicles, other avenues of healing, of the healing arts, of healing modalities, of techniques and tools, of things that you can do, and I call all of those things vehicles. The vehicle helps move the energy. An example, I will talk about grief, to have grief energy, to work with grief, and to be consciously living and moving our grief. We oftentimes can use these vehicles. So for example, creative expression, painting, dancing, writing a song, writing a piece, writing a poem. In those moments when I'm engaged and I'm actively pursuing something, and it's a very concrete tool, there is potential for the grief energy to be moved through the vehicle of that tool. And in the process, it provides a mirror. And so I'm using the moments of the mirror where I can see a reflection of myself, or a reflection of my suffering, a reflection of where I'm stuck, a reflection of where I need to learn something, a reflection on who I'm becoming, a reflection on my fear, a reflection on my sadness, living with my sadness. So all of these vehicles, no matter what they are, these tools in your tool bag that you collect, these are vehicles to move the energy. To have a healing lifestyle, to be disciplined, to stay focused, to know that this is important, to be committed. What happens is you begin to align with a self-directed approach. Now, oftentimes our culture, our Western medical model, and or a model of disease, of pathology, something's broken and something needs fixed. We are also a culture of dependency, where we deny our own spirit and we deny our own wisdom. And we are a culture that loves experts. And if you have a guru and if you have an expert, which, good for you, if that's working and if that's helpful, then wonderful. I want to point out that oftentimes there's a limitation when we assign a dependency onto another person, an expert, telling us what we need. It is very common that so many people who are hurting, so many people who are suffering, so many people who are in pain will ask the question, well, how do I heal? How do I get better? How do I change the situation? How do I improve my relationships? How do I get a more purpose-filled job? How do I repair my wounding around spirituality so I can return to connecting with God? Whatever it is, so many people very quickly go to wanting to find someone else who has the answer to tell them. That is what I am proposing here that we do not do. I want to talk about, I want to focus on, I want to create a series of videos that very generically are going to be called self-directed healing. And I will present a framework. I will present different things to look at and to say, well, here's ways that you can categorize some ideas. Here's some techniques. But I want you to think of it like a menu, where you can, or build your own, like build your own taco. You can go to the taco place and all the ingredients are out and you're like, well, I realized today I want this protein and I want this lettuce and I want these tomatoes, etc. So essentially that's what I want to suggest or want to begin to formulate through the series of videos of a self-directed healing approach where we can map out some areas for you to educate yourself, to pay attention. But the actual plan for moving that forward and how you integrate it, how you exhale into it, how you take it into your bones, that is up to you. And I'm hoping, even in this moment, I'm hoping that you're feeling somewhat of the invitation and the inspiration to know that you can do this. How to do this, how we begin, is we really want to make the distinction or acknowledge different parts of ourself. And there's a number of systems, there's a number of modalities that come from this idea. But we can just generically say, well, sometimes I feel like this and sometimes I feel like this. Well, I have this part of me that can see things from this way, and then I have this other part of me that sees things this other way. And, let's pretend we have, 7 different parts, and now we're looking at everything from all these different perspectives. I also like to use the phrase board of directors. I have a internalized spiritual healing board of directors. And they each have a different role and they have a different importance. And we're able to have a board meeting. We're able to have a very strategic planning meeting and say, when I'm coming from this part's awareness and I'm working with all of the different parts together, I'm able to tap into my wisdom self. Collectively, they are my wisdom self. I want you to think about the phrase, your intuitive healer self, your intuitive wisdom self, your observer self. When we have an observer self, that means there's the part of me that's experiencing, there's a part of me that's actually in the present moment doing, having the experience. Now there's also this other part of me, there's this observer self that's noticing, that is observing the experience. So I'm both the experiencer and the experience at the same time. This is a product of mind. It sounds a bit complex. It sounds a bit paradoxical. Quite honestly, it can be confusing. So if you're confused, that totally makes sense. However, I want you to start thinking in terms of what or where is my intuitive healer self? How do I access my my sense of wisdom, my inner guide, my inner knowing that's going to help me discern, do I turn left or do I turn right? Do I pursue this modality of healing or do I prioritize that and I put that on the back burner because now I need to focus on this? We cannot move forward at all with a healing lifestyle. We cannot move forward at all with a plan of self-directed healing if you do not nurture and cultivate this intuitive healer self, this wisdom self, this sense of this observer self that is able to prioritize and discern. Now, some of you hearing this are going to be perplexed and confused and or very quickly say, you do not have this self, you have no idea what I'm talking about. And I want to calm your fears and I want to reassure you that that is normal and you're not alone, and many people feel like that. Many of us, many people are cut off from their own awareness. They're so cut off from their own awareness, they don't know that they're cut off. So what I am suggesting, a plan of self-directed healing, is to begin to wake up and activate our own awareness so that we're not cut off from our wisdom self, from our mature adult self, from our intuitive healer self. And I will continue some on this video, but future videos, to explain more. How do we cultivate and how do we strengthen this relationship? One way we do it is just the phrase, we go inward. Many people, many of us, it's so easy through mind, it's so easy through distraction culturally, our environment, to be distracted, to constantly be focusing on what is out here, this happened, she said this, he did this, could you believe that, this is on TV, went to that movie. It's a lot of clutter and a lot of external distraction. So to begin to tap into your wisdom self, your intuitive healer self, your observer self, we slow down and we observe the distraction. We notice how we're getting pulled in 4 different ways and how we might pursue text messaging. We might constantly look at our phone. We might need to check Facebook. Now I feel like I need a lemonade. I'm going to go to Starbucks and get a lemonade. And then now I've realized I need to run this errand. I'm going to go to the bank. And we're just constantly going, doing. And it's seeking pleasure and seeking entertainment, which is nothing wrong with pleasure and entertainment. But if that's all we do and it disconnects us from knowing ourselves, well, then that's a problem. And you're not going to be able to have any clarity of a roadmap of your own healing choices or your own healing path if you're unable to slow down and if you're unable to move inward. we are beginning to discern, we are beginning to look at, who am I? How do I really feel about this? What is going on in this moment in my body, in my arms, in my legs, in my stomach, in my spine, in my forehead, in my feet, my fingers, my toes, in my shoulders? And we take a breath, and we're connecting the breath to this moment. And we're beginning to say, okay, what is going on here? What do I notice? Do I notice the distraction? Do I begin to drop into what is my experience? And we're not judging it. We're not saying it's good or bad or ugly or horrible or needs to be changed. We're simply saying, can I observe it? Can I notice it? This is the foundation. This is the beginning of creating a plan or a skill of self-directed healing. Many of the people that I work with oftentimes report that they struggle to go inward. We bump up against an obstacle. We get so far and then we cannot go any further. If you notice that, if that is your place, that's the place where you work. That's the gentle place. That's the place where we bring all the more compassion and tenderness and kindness, and we begin to hang out there. We begin to find ways that we can sit at the edge of the place where we're confused. I am aware that this language is so confusing at times, or it's a bit of a heightened language that might not always translate into practical terms. So I apologize for that in this moment, and also please know that I am committed in these videos to be able to translate into more accessible language and very concrete action steps of how we would actually go inward and how we will continue to be able to sit with our experience and benefit from the insight that comes out of this place. That is the purpose of what we're doing. If we can slow down, if we can find our intuitive wisdom, our intuitive healer self, our wisdom self, our observer self, if we can begin to track what's happening in the body, if we cannot be so quick to be distracted by our external, all of the external things that are jockeying for our attention, and we instead bring our attention back to ourselves, there is potential, and what we are cultivating is insight comes out of that place. That's the information that you're looking for. That is what I mean by being having a plan or an approach of being self-directed in your healing path. That insight that will, we might use the metaphor of, sort of rise to the top or bubble up, or it'll, those moments when you're in the shower and you're just showering and all of a sudden you have these great, incredible ideas, and like out of nowhere, it's like, oh my gosh, I just totally solved that dilemma. And that's essentially what we're doing, but we don't have to be in the shower all the time. So we could say that metaphorically. This plan, this path, this approach of a self-directed healing is to metaphorically slow down enough to take more showers throughout the day, so that hopefully you'll begin to court, you'll begin to, it's like nurturing a garden. If you just hang out in the garden enough, if you keep doing your job of what you need to do in the garden, you're going to start noticing over time that you are going to benefit with some harvest. There are going to be changes and shifts in the garden landscape. If we're talking about going inward, we're talking about your emotional landscape. You're going to really begin to notice different aspects of yourself being reflected back to you. The self is looking at the self, and yes, I know that is very confusing. And that's where we have choice. And we're trying to find those moments, because You need to make the choice. I cannot make that choice for you. I cannot tell you what to do. There are no other healers in this world. There are not other people who can tell you what choice you need to make. It is so incredibly personal, and it is something that you need to come to a realization on your own. However, the whole point of this video and the whole point of my passion behind this is that there are things that we can do. I can be a cheerleader and I could say, well, let's at least look at this area. Let's try to cultivate how do we take care of a garden. For some people, it's even needing me to say, hey, hello, you have an inner garden and it's time to, become a gardener. Many people don't live surrounded by other people or organizations or inspiration that even lets them know that this is important. There is, in my opinion, what is more important than attending to this garden of your own development and emotional health and awareness and presence? And this opens you up to that part of you that is expansive, that is transpersonal, transcendent. We're moving into living a spiritual life, living a practice of spirituality. However, I try sometimes to soften using spiritual speak and spiritual language is because there's so much crap and confusion and spiritual materialism and dishonesty that comes culturally for many of the lessons of using spiritual speak. So please know that that is a very strong thread moving through what we are doing here. And at the same time, I want to be very strategic about the language because it very quickly can become lofty and ethereal and esoteric. And very quickly we can go down a rabbit hole and then conclude, what the hell are we talking about? This is very weird. This is very bizarre. I have no idea how I apply this to my life. We need to keep it practical and we need to keep it grounded because it is so easy for it to get flighty and to get away from us. I want to point out very quickly something to begin to think about when you start to reflect on what is my intuitive healer self? What is the voice of my intuitive healer self? How do I access my wise knowing? How do I connect to the clarity of the observer self? One way we can begin to do this is we can start to think in categories, and it's what I call thoughts, feelings, actions. That's not unique to me. I did not create that. There are a whole many, I think there's something like 450 different psychotherapies, and many of them we could classify as falling into different camps of those three areas: thoughts, feelings, and actions. Under feelings, I also want to include, some people create a fourth category that they call sensations, the felt sense, the body sense, what I was mentioning earlier of really slowing down breathing and paying attention to your body. So some people don't think of it in terms of these three as a triangle. They think of it as four distinct areas: thoughts, feelings, actions, and sensations. Although I can see the distinction, I like to put sensations with the feelings, and also there's some confusion sometimes between the word feelings and emotions, so I throw it all together and say feelings, emotions, sensations. The reason why I'm pointing this out is that this can begin to be a roadmap for when you're connected to your intuitive healer self and you're asking yourself the question, okay, how do I heal? What's next? What's on my agenda? What am I working on? Where do I bring my focus and intention today in order to help myself? One way that we can begin to do this, because it can be so overwhelming to know, like, okay, well, where do I begin? To think about, what are your thoughts? What's the quality of your thinking? How are you thinking? Do you have discursive, crazy, out of this world thinking that's constantly chatter and going? Do you have a kind of dissociated thinking where you're someone who, when asked and put on the spot, hey, what are you thinking? And you very quickly, you draw a blank, you don't know what to say, you have nothing to say, and you respond with, oh, I don't know what I'm thinking. We could also look at feelings, what's going on in your body. Again, the sensation, the felt sense. So it could be I'm feeling angry, and there's a charge to the anger, and I might even have a story of why I'm angry. But then when I say, what's the sensation of the anger? I say, well, I'm feeling hot under the collar. I'm noticing my vocal cords are constricting. I'm noticing I'm beginning to attack. I'm feeling a sense of like hardening of my muscles. Feelings, looking at the sensation, looking at the felt sense, and beginning to just name that emotion. What is my relationship to that feeling? So again, if it's anger, I could say, well, do I like it? Do I dislike it? On a scale of 0 to 10, how intense is it? Is it fire? Is it water? Is it metal? Is it prickly? Is it hitting me in the face, like with a frying pan? Or does it feel like I'm so angry it's like I'm locked in a room? We can use images here, and we use these images to begin to mirror back to us our own experience. This is why we're doing this. This is what's so important. To be in relationship with ourselves. We thrive as human beings. We thrive when we have a emotional mirroring back to us of our own self. I only know who I am because I see myself reflected back to me in other people, and I see myself reflected back to me in the world around me. We can actively participate in that mirroring so that sometimes it's not dependent on just other. This going inward that I'm referring to, this going inward that I'm inviting you to do, that's what that is doing, is taking time, holding space, taking the time to mirror back to me my own experience. And when I do this, it has a neurophysiological functioning in my brain, or a neurophysiological benefit of helping me feel calm, helping me feel understood. And essentially in those moments, I'm understanding myself. I'm employing my own ability to be for myself what I need. And it's not dependent on waiting for someone else to be that for me. Now, we do need other people. This is not something I can only do by myself for the rest of my life. What I am proposing to engage in a healing lifestyle, what I'm proposing to have a strengthened observer self, and to practice the discipline of gardening in your inner world and gardening your emotional awareness. You need to do this to not only heal from past wounds and to heal from places where you might be stuck in your development, to heal where you have been hurt. And so there's this history, these places that still need some attention. And through activating grief, entering the grief process, that allows us to mature and develop and grow and to make sense of, make meaning out of, and make peace with what had happened. At the same time that we're doing this, I'm not suggesting that you live in a cave or you live under a rock, or that this is the only thing that you need in your life. We still need input from others. We still need nourishment. Think of the garden analogy. The garden still needs sunshine. The garden still needs nutrients from the earth. The garden needs all the other critters and the animals that enter the garden, and they have a job that they do. It's a whole ecosystem. So we are participating in an ecosystem. And at the same time, we're trying to activate a healing consciousness. And I like this metaphor of the garden, so I'm just going to call it a gardening consciousness. We need to be able to step back and look at the whole landscape, to look at the garden and say, I am responsible for this whole experience. How can I show up and be present and be available and offer my service, offer my commitment to helping the garden grow? It's going to grow. It's not your responsibility to make it grow. There's something natural. That's the life force. The life force just comes through the garden and things just grow. And that's true of your healing. Healing will take place if you garden. And having a self-directed plan, a self-directed model of healing, that is inviting. That's at least choosing to say that you're going to garden and that you want to grow, you want this to take off. I need to finish what I was talking about. I got a little sidetracked. Just very quickly, thoughts, feelings, actions, and sensations connected also to feelings. We look at all three of these areas, and these are really helpful to begin to orient, okay, well, where do I need to focus? Where do I start? And if we're looking at actions, we're just looking at behaviors, and we're looking at how do I actually show up in this world, and what am I doing? Or we could also look at what am I not doing? Where do I get stymied? Where do I get stuck? Where do I not take action? Where do I not have agency? So that framework is one way that we can begin to have this cultivating an awareness for a model of self-directed healing. For the sake of this introductory video, for the sake of sharing all of this, I'm going to end here. There are more videos coming up. I really want to map out a number of areas. So many people, I think I said this earlier, I'm just so frequently confronted. I have an online presence, and people send me emails, people send me comments in different ways. But I'm repeatedly confronted with a very simple but daunting question, the simple question of, well, how do I heal that? Or how do I heal from that? Well, what do I need to do to make that happen? And so by me creating a series of videos on a model of self-directed healing, it essentially is my response and my answer to all those people who keep asking me, well, how do I heal this? I'm going to map out and begin to create a system of, again, it's going to be like not a recipe, but like going to a restaurant where it's like build your own taco. And I want to show that here are these different areas that we can focus on. And then you, if you have been practicing connecting to your inner wisdom self, will begin to start to discern, yes, I need this first, and then I need this piece, and then I'll do this piece. And then you say, well, this piece is too advanced right now. I need to do that down the road. Or, oh, I have some preliminary work. I can't even begin to work on this, even though this is important, because I need to shore up these skills first. And all of it is about conscious development. All of it is about maturing as a human being. And there's nothing pathological about that. There's nothing broken about that. There's nothing that needs fixed about that. It's just being a human being. You grow, you keep growing, you're maturing, you're maturing. To have a healing lifestyle is to make a conscious choice to say, I want to be present and available to myself while I'm maturing. That's what we're talking about. And if this is you, then please continue to watch these videos. More videos are coming up. I hope you can hear my passion about this. I'm really excited. And I will be mapping it out in some lovely documents that I can put online so you can download. And we can then start to share stories. We can start to talk about, what are the obstacles to accessing internalized healer self, to accessing our wisdom self. When do we notice that we're dissociated and we can disconnect from this inner resource? And then we'll also share stories of, well, how did we trust ourselves? How are we strengthening our own relationship with ourselves? We're building trust with ourselves. And then what happens next? What's unfolding? And we are going to share so many stories, and we're going to be inspired by each other. And I hope that you will join me. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you want more videos. You can learn more about me at alanrobarge.com. And also, if you like this video and you want to chat with some other people about these ideas, go ahead and join the Facebook group called The New Love Addiction. And you'll be able to make comments and share ideas and learn some new things. And we'd love to have you. So until next time, thank you so much.